Hello, I'm Matthew Malcolm with Pacific Nut Producer Magazine, reporting to you from Folsom, California, headquarters of the California Walnut Board and Commission. I'm here with the CEO, Robert Verloop. Wanted to speak with you today, get an update on the California walnut crop this year. We've had some interesting weather patterns, but fortunately we really appreciate the early season rain, right? That's been different from some of the years in the past. Tell us about it.
Yeah, actually, you got to almost go back 2 years. We've had two really good winters. From a production standpoint, we got good deep water. The trees are really resilient, and they're showing that. We had some mixed temperatures earlier this year during pollination, so we have different sets that are out there. But all in all, coming off of a record crop last year, this year's crop quality looks really good. The volume itself is going to be less, but walnuts have a tendency to alternate bear, so that's not unusual. And so all in all, we're very optimistic as we're going into the harvest season. I know there's a lot of people asking about, well, the weather has been a little warmer than it has been in previous years, but because the walnut is not, the kernel itself is not fully developed, the impact that we had a couple of years ago of the super high temperatures, we're not seeing that right now. So right now everything looks really good. Yeah, a little bit of tip burn on some of the trees, but in general we're very optimistic. In addition to what's on the tree, it also looks like our sales have been pretty robust this year, and it looks like our carry-in number is going to be less than 100,000 tons on top of a crop that may be 720,000 tons. So that'll be the smallest crop we've had in the last 4 years, 5 years.
You're talking about like inventory?
Yeah, inventory. So inventory, that's both inventory carrying from one season to the next, and then what's on the trees. And so we're entering the season really in good shape. The global market's changed a little bit. Chilean production is down about 35%. So that transition period between Chile and ourselves is much smaller and shorter in time than it has been, to the point where even July we started seeing orders coming in already for the fall crop at reasonable prices. We'd love to see them a little bit higher. The goal here is to start the season with a reasonable number and then allow the price to go up, rather than have so much product and the price drops down because there's just this need to move such a big crop. We really think this is a moderate-sized crop that the marketplace is readily going to absorb. As long as we continue to see these pre-sales, I continue to be really optimistic about what we got coming up.
So crop-wise, we're looking good. Inventory-wise, looking good too. It sounds like there's some hope on the horizon because prices over the last several years, have been very disappointing, I think, to, in our growers in the industry. We've had a lot of acreage removed as well as a result. So looking forward, you mentioned in our previous conversation that there's a recent report, a 5-year report, looking at the global scale of the walnut industry and what we expect in the future market-wise. Things are looking on the upside, right?
Yeah, I think we've demonstrated, one, we can move a big crop. But the problem, of course, is that a bigger crop meant lower prices, and we got to find the right balance between demand and supply. And so the supply, as we've talked about, we've lost about 50,000 acres over the last couple of years. A lot of that is older varieties, older orchards that were not as productive. Water availability, in certain parts of the growing area, have driven some people to remove walnuts. But as we start to look ahead, we think that decline will be less. We still have orchards that need to be recycled and removed, but that will be slowing down over time. And this last year, we had 13,000 new acres planted as well. So there is this automatic recycling that's going on. I think the key to all of this, and that we've talked about in that 5-year report that was issued by Rabobank, and they did a nice job of articulating that the older varieties, which were less productive, are being replaced by newer varieties, especially the Chandler variety, of younger, higher density acres. And so while acreage may be going down, we see a stabilization in the total volume on a year-to-year basis, notwithstanding weather and also as we have these alternate bearing crops. But in general, we see that stabilizing. I think the other part of that equation that you talked about is you got a supply-demand balance. And we've put a lot of effort into the demand side. Taking a look here domestically, we had 11% increase in domestic sales last year. on top of 17% the year before. So
That's significant.
it is. It is. Now, some of that was Section 32, which we needed that help from the USDA because of the big crop that we had. But as we start to moderate the carry-in number, we become less dependent on that, which everybody would prefer not to be dependent on that. And then we really start to take a look at how else can we stimulate sales. And our focus right now in the domestic market, similar to what we see internationally, is we got to activate sales. So it's not enough just to have demand out there. You really need to get consumers buying more product, right? A lot of this industry has been built on relationships that I call, we're suppliers of an ingredient item that's a commodity. And what we're working on is how do we create more pull-through demand, more of that sales from the consumer going going backwards in some regard. The key to that is how to create better value-building partnerships between our handlers and growers and those people that own the last mile to the consumer. And the closer we can make that supply chain, more of our profits stay within our industry. We're not giving margin away to other folks. And quite frankly, the closer we are to the consumer, we can do a better job of activating those sales, making sure we have the right sales promotions. Domestically, we've had a lot of sales promotions with the retailers. We're really focusing this next year on retail food service, restaurant operations, where we're only on 22% of the menus in the United States. We need to increase that number. And then we really need to focus in on the food manufacturing area so we can get into the snacking aisle. We got the baking aisle. You and I have talked about this before. Right. We got baking made. But what we really want to do is expand our industry's offering at produce department and then snacking and really make sure that we're relevant to consumers. We've taken a hard look at today's consumers. It's not grandma. Right, and if you think about the baking aisle, that's an aisle that's declining in sales. It's not in line with plant-based, plant-forward diet thinking. And today's consumer is younger and not doing as much baking. And the expression that we use is, "We're not your grandmother's nut." We really want to be more focused in on being a connected foodie product. So we're looking at younger generation, how to communicate with them, and then what are they looking for? Not all of them are looking for banana nut or brownies, right? There's a lot of other things that we can do with walnuts. So we're really expanding the portfolio of products that contain walnuts, but then also looking at walnuts as a snacking item differently than what we've done in the past. So smaller packaging, more flavors, and that lends itself really well to the produce department, where people come in with more disposable income first. We're going to walk into produce. And then the other thing that we found out through some research is that when the market basket has walnuts in it, the value of that market basket is actually $55 to $56 more than the ones that didn't have walnuts. And the reason for that is people that are buying walnuts are also buying a lot of other fresh fruits and vegetables, other items like cereals and milks and yogurts. And so when you take a look at the value that come with the walnuts, it's something that we want to educate retailers on as the incremental value that we deliver.
Well, that's awesome. Way to think outside of the shell, and we're really excited for the good work of the California Walnut Board and Commission. We've had to navigate some difficult years, and it's been how many years since you've been with the industry? 2 years, and looks like there's great things to expect in the future. So thank you for your assistance and your leadership. Read more about these things in Pacific Nut Producer Magazine. I'm Matthew Malcolm, CaliforniaAgNet.com.